Joshua, and I'm here to dispel a myth about Scribe Online connectors. They're not hard to build, they're very easy, they can be very fast, and you can get them deployed and get to working on your solution very quickly. And that's what Connector Outlaws is all about. It's about building your connector, getting it out there, and doing it quickly and fast. Hello again, Joshua Solomon here, your outlaw. Today we're actually going to become outlaws. We're going to do a couple of things that are a little bit outside the mix here. So pay attention. You're going to find something in this video that you won't find anywhere else within the Scribe community. All right, today we're talking about webhooks and how they're used with Scribe Online. All right, webhooks allow you to send data in JSON format to Scribe Online maps. So these are called event maps. Event maps accept a JSON request from anywhere. You can set it up so that you can filter that by IP address for security reasons and only allow incoming requests to your event maps from a particular location. So each map that you build as an event map has its own unique endpoint assigned by Scribe. It accepts JSON. It accepts flat JSON only. And what that means is that when the JSON comes in, it has to be a top-level JSON. So hierarchical JSON, multi-level JSON is not supported. You must also define the event fields in your event map. And then once your map is run, once that data is accepted from a webhook anywhere out there, you can take that data, you can run it through any number of the connectors, any number of control blocks, and return data back to your webhook, again in flat JSON data only. So let's very quickly review that process. We are connector designers, we are solution designers here, but we're going to review that process real quick, just as a quick tutorial. So here we are. I'm in my organization. I'm going to come into my event testing solutions, and we're going to open up our leads to Marketo. So this is an example of where you would see someone filling out a form on the internet, filling in their information and hitting submit, and then you take that data that they've sent, put it into JSON format, submit it to a Scribe map such as this, and then do some work with it. So here we're doing some work where we're taking lead data from the internet from a web lead request, and we're processing it through a cleansing service, and then we're updating that lead record into our marketing automation system so that we can do some email campaigns to this lead. Now the key here is that we have an incoming lead, and we build a reply, and we send that reply to the webhook service that sent us that data. So that webhook can come from any product. Salesforce does webhooks. You can do webhooks from Dynamic CRM. You can do webhooks from a simple web page. And there are a lot of services out there that can send JSON webhooks. So if I drill into my wait for request block, we can see that this map has a very specific endpoint assigned to it by Scribe Online, and that's the endpoint that you point your webhook to. So that's the endpoint that your data, your JSON data, is going to come in, and then Scribe will take that information, route it to the proper agent, and to the proper map. This map has a request definition tab. This is where we define the data that we expect to come in with that JSON request. Again, all top-level fields in our JSON. And so here I've outlined the lead information that I expect this webhook to send me. Again, top level, there's no hierarchical. I don't have the ability to be hierarchical here. And so that's where I'm going to send my data. That data is going to get processed from that webhook. It's going to get updated into my Marketo system, and then I'm going to build a reply. Here, on the building of a reply, my target here is going to be a list of fields that I want my webhook to receive back as a response from Scribe. And it can be anything that comes in. So just like in a normal map where we're creating data, we can drag and drop fields. And when we do that, we're actually creating what our JSON is going to look like. It's going to be top level flat JSON with these fields. So here's my wait for request block. I'm sending back information, or I can take information from an input for any previous control block, just like normal mapping. And we can also bring back result information from our Marketo upsert, and that's what I'm going to do here. And so I can see, okay, this many records were inserted, whether or not it was success, any error numbers coming back. And what this represents is that top level JSON. Simple. So once we build that reply, we have our send reply block, which actually doesn't do anything except tell us whether or not it's time to exit the map or continue on with a loop, etc. So this send reply actually tells Scribe Online to take whatever you've built as a reply and send it back to the calling webhook as a response. And I'll do one more thing. I'm going to go back into the build reply, and I'm going to show you that not only can I drag and drop fields from the source to the target, or from Scribe Online results to the target, but I can actually add new fields and hard code them or add formulas in here. So I can send back any type of data that I want back to this calling web service. So whatever this web service expects as a response, you can build it here, as long as it's single level, top level JSON. So that's how web requests, webhooks, and JSON work with Scribe Online event-based maps. So let's go back and let's talk about what that means. Any system can send JSON data to Scribe. Again, the caveat is we have to open up that security using our security options in our organization. But there are some drawbacks. Not all webhooks send flat JSON. A lot of systems out there don't have the ability to customize how they send their webhooks. It simply takes data in a hierarchical format or an unflattened multi-level format and sends it along. And you may not have, as a user or as a connector outlaw, the ability to flatten that JSON out in the manner that Scribe Online expects it. Most systems have that multi-level aspect to it. So let's take a look at what that means. So here's an example of a multi-level JSON that I encountered recently in working with some partners here at Scribe. This multi-level JSON shows that we have a field. Whoops, let's go back. We shows that we have a field and a value. And as we come down, the fourth field here, life cycle state, instead of a value, it has multiple values, and it can have multiple values. In this case, we've only got one. It's the life cycle state BN number, which is an identification number for this particular system that we're working with. And then there's domain BN number, and then there's content status ID, etc. So you can see here that with our curly braces, we're actually splitting out the data, but there's only one piece of data in there. It's just not at the top level. So if you tried to send this webhook information to Scribe, it's not going to work, and we don't have the ability to flatten it at the source. So what do we do about it? What would we like to see? What we would like to see is this data formatted in this way, where we have our top level guys that were just fine, entity discriminator, the BN number, the name, and then down here we have lifecycle state underscore BN number. And if there were multiple lifecycle state values, it would be lifecycle state underscore BN, lifecycle state underscore description. You can see that what I've done is I've simply flattened it out. I've put an underscore in between each of the multi-levels of this JSON. And I would like to see that come through to my Scribe Online map. And so what I would like that to look like in Scribe Online is this. We'll go back into our event testing maps. And we'll go into our flatten event test map. And we'll take a look at what I put in here for my wait for request. Again, it's got its own unique map identifier endpoint assigned by Scribe. And over here in the wait for request, I did exactly what I just talked about. I wrote out the field names in a flat manner. And that's what Scribe Online is expecting. It's expecting those flat field names. Again, now we're missing a piece. We're still missing a piece. What we need to do is figure out how to get the web service or the webhook to translate the information from here, where we have multiple levels, to here where we have a single level. And we're going to do that by being outlaws. Today we're going to introduce the Outlaw Web Service server. We've got one web service running on this Outlaw Web server. It is used to flatten that JSON. So this web service will actually accept the unflattened, the multi-level JSON that you send from any location. It will accept that data in, it will flatten that JSON and forward it on to your Scribe Online map for you in a flat manner, allowing you to set up webhooks in systems that don't support this flat JSON that Scribe Online expects. So it flattens JSON, relays it to your endpoint. This is for use in proof of concepts only. There is no SLA. There is an unofficial server, and there's no support for it. In fact, a lot of folks here at Scribe don't even know this server exists. Again, it's for proof of concepts. Although it is for proof of concepts, there is a secure Scribe certificate. So you will find that this server expects HTTPS traffic, and it is signed by Scribe Online and by our SSL certifiers. So it is a secure server. So let's talk about how this works, and let's take a look. So we'll move on, and we'll go back to Scribe Online. Now, we looked at the map. We saw that in the map I defined flat data as I would expect it. So when I look at my JSON that my web service is sending out, I know that I just simply put an underscore in between each level. And so I'm going to use my Postman. We've talked about Postman before. And we're going to, here's our unflattened JSON. You can see we've got the multiple level fields here along with the top level fields here. And what I've introduced here is our Outlaw Web Service location and a single parameter called endpoint. And so here's my endpoint, and into my endpoint, that's where I'm going to paste in the Scribe Online endpoint of the map that I want to send flat data to. And that's it. Beyond that, the body of my request, the body of my webhook, is this unflattened JSON. And I'm simply going to send that request. So I'm a system out there. I'm sending this unflattened code to a Scribe Online, or to our relay server, which will flatten the data and then forward it on to Scribe Online. Scribe Online will process that data, and it will bring back a response from Scribe Online as built by the map that we were just looking at. And that response will include, will then be relayed by the Outlaw server back to the calling webhook. And so I'll hit the send button here, and it will take about a half a second more than normal to receive the response from Scribe Online. And you can see down here at the bottom that we do have a response. I'll put it into JSON format, and we can see that the response is a true, meaning we succeeded. We matched one record in our target system, and we actually got some information back that we didn't actually send in the input. So the fact that we've got some information that came back indicates that we did run a Scribe Online map. And so let's take a quick look at what that did. So that is our flatten event test, and we'll actually come back out here to our solutions and we'll take a look, and we can see that it ran just a few seconds ago, 11:16, and it is now 11:17. So we did run that map. So the question is, how did we do it? Let's talk about that. All right, so the flattening web service. Here's the information we just went over. So we have our actual location of the web service. We have a single parameter, and that parameter is the event map URL. And this is the URL. And so here's an example. You can see that I have my location, my parameter, and my URL for Scribe Online. So that's how we use that. We'll leave that up on the screen for just a second so that you can take a look at that. This top level link is never going to change. That's the link that you want to use. Again, using the Outlaw server is not supported. You can use it for proof of concepts. If you would like to use this method, we can help you stand up your own server to process this data for you. So you can actually run this service yourself, because I'm going to give you the binaries to run this web service, and I'm also going to give you the source code for this web service. Now, there are some limitations. And these limitations are because of the Scribe Online platform. And so this is temporary. The one limitation that's the most glaring is the 30-character limit to field names in Scribe Online. So if we take a look at our Scribe Online, when we drill into our flatten map and we look at the field names that we defined, we can see that the field names, if you were to extend this and there were multiple levels, you could actually get a field name that goes beyond 30 characters, and that is what's not supported. So what happens is your flattening service will brute force the flattening of that data. Okay, and so the web service brute forces the flattening, and the field names that are actually sent to Scribe may in fact be longer than 30 characters. And if that's the case, those fields will be unusable. Scribe will not reject the input. The input will actually still be there as part of the JSON input, but in your map you will not be able to use those fields. Those fields will simply be ignored by Scribe Online. So you have a 30-character limit to field names. So when you're flattening JSON, be aware that if you have multiple levels, multiple levels, your field names can get out of control, and those fields that are way down here at the bottom of the tree may still not be accessible. Arrays are not supported. So when you have a JSON request or JSON body that includes arrays, these arrays will not be flattened out by this web flattening service, or by this JSON flattening service. So that's another limitation. And the last limitation is this. This is not hierarchical support. You cannot send multiple children of exactly the same names, because they'll come up to the top level with, again, exactly the same names, and only one of them will actually be recognized. You'll have duplicate field names in your top level field, so in your top level JSON. So it is not hierarchical support. It is parent, one child, and then siblings, but it's only the one sibling of each type. Hierarchical support for this type of map is planned for later in 2016. So our version 2 of the Scribe Online UI is going to be followed, or it's not even going to be followed. I believe it's going to come in conjunction with hierarchical support. So this is kind of a stopgap for certain types of multi-level JSON that don't fall into the hierarchical category. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some source code, because source code is fun. All right, so here's the source code for my JSON flattening service. It's simply a WCF web service that runs on an IIS machine, and this is the source code. We have our relay JSON, which is the endpoint that we're sending data to, and we're accepting data. And what we're doing is we're promoting all named properties to the parent, to a parent object, to a parent property. And once we do that, we're also iterating through each sublevel of that JSON. And again, this is the brute force method. We're iterating through it, and then we're making the request. We're basically relaying that information back off to the endpoint, which is the Scribe Online endpoint, and we're getting data back, and we're returning that data as a stream. So that's how the web service works. And down here in the source code, we can see that we have our flattened fields routine, and I'm replacing, or I'm prefixing each sublevel with an underscore. You can change that if you like. One thing you can't change it to is a period. If you changed it to a period, that really confuses the Scribe Online interpreter. So that's probably going to be a problem. So, and that's it. All we do, again, we run through a brute force process of flattening all of that data. So, if you had the source code, could you become an outlaw? And the idea there is, if I gave you it, and I am going to give you the source code for this, what would you do with it? What could you do with it? Well, a couple of things that you could do is you could modify the response that comes back from Scribe Online. As you could see in the source code I just showed you, all I do is take the Scribe Online response and forward it back onto your web service. But you may be able to modify that response. If you stood up your own web service that flattens this data and then forwards it to Scribe Online, Scribe Online then sends your web service back a response. You could take that response and unflatten it. You can match a response type that your webhook is looking for. Other things that you can do, you can ignore the response from Scribe, essentially making your webhook a fire and forget. You could take that web service and log the request so that you can replay those requests later. It's essentially an intercept. You could actually modify the flattening routine to fix the field links of more than 30 characters. You can actually come up with your own routine to modify field names so that they fall within a particular pattern that you can use. And then again, on the backside, unflatten that back into your webhook expected format. And you could also support arrays. So I'm going to give you the links to the flattening service. I'm going to give you the links to the binaries, and I'm going to give you the links to the source code so that you can actually expand on this as you will. So here's the flattening web service, the binaries, and the source code, and you're ready to have at it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.